This is Gabriela on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. We have a real treat for you just around the corner, and that is Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. Jeff is the owner of Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and he will be coming to you weekly to teach you more about empowered living. Now, let's join Jeff already in the studio.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jeff Byrd with Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and this is Empowered Living. Now, one of the things I do for a living, the primary thing, is I work with teams, I work with organizations, I work with individuals in order to find out how they want things to be, but in a way that they aren't currently experiencing. And we find out, well, what does that look like? What would better look like? And then we figure out how to provide the skills, the thought processes, the training to help get to that place. And so that's why the title for today's show is Gaining 2020 Vision. Getting clear in the new year, because and by the way, Happy New Year's, because this will be, we're recording this on New Year's Eve, but it's going to air on New Year's Day. So we want to get clear in the new year. And of course, the year is going to be 2020. Hence, we want to get clear on our 2020 vision. So what I want to do is ask you, how do you want things to look like in 2020? Now, maybe you remember the Charlie Brown cartoon from some years ago, and Charlie Brown was out shooting his bow and arrow, shooting arrows around, and what he would do is he would just shoot, and then wherever the arrow landed, he would go and he would paint a bullseye around it. So he was always hitting the center of the bullseye, even though he had no skills as an archer. And Lucy came along, of course, and questioned, said that's not how you do it, Charlie Brown. You have to in order to hit your target and get some skill, you have to have a bullseye first, and then you have to learn to hit it, not just paint a bullseye around wherever your arrow happens to land. But the funny thing, and I can look back on my life, and boy, I wish I'd have known that simple, silly little lesson and really taken it to heart many, many years ago. It's so easy to approach life with no clear direction and no clear goal and no clear idea of what you want things to look like. And, we don't want to be, none of us, when we think of it like Charlie Brown, we don't want to be a Charlie Brown. We don't want to just be randomly making our way through life and wherever we happen to land and just saying, oh yeah, that's where I'm meant to be, whether it's where we really need to be and want to be or not. Right? So there's a couple of areas I want to look at, to help us get clear on how we would like to be in the new year, in 2020. And the first area I want to talk about, this is one of my favorites, and a friend of mine posted on Facebook yesterday, and he asked the question, he said, in 2 words, what would you say to your younger self? And there were some funny ones. One of them was buy Apple. I was like, yeah, don't we all wish we'd have done that? But my 2 words were personal development. And that's finding an area, a personal area. It doesn't have anything to do with anybody else, although it will make a difference in how I relate to other people. But it's like, how do I want to become better personally? Just me. What areas do I want to develop? Right? And these might be intellectual areas, emotional areas, physical areas. But to ask the question, what areas do I want to develop, and to get really clear on that? Maybe I want to think better in some area, right? Maybe I want, just like what we're talking about today, getting clear on what we'd like to look like. Maybe that's an area of personal development, just gaining clarity on that, on how I think about life in general, how I feel and how I react to things. That's one of the ones I want to work on, just responding to difficulty. Just more positively, more confidently, with more faith, to keep moving on with greater perseverance and vigor. That's one of the ones I wanted to be, being more patient. That's an area I want to work on this year. But to work on it, I have to be mindful of it, right? I have to be aware of, here's the type of situations that I tend to not be patient in, that I do tend to get frustrated or maybe down about when they're not going the way I would like them to go. And physically too, last year was good. That lost some weight and started walking daily. But I find, when I look at my yearly calendar, looking back on it, there was a couple of months that weren't so good. So what can I do how can I get clear on when I need to do this and then intentionally develop that every day? So personal development, what areas, financial is another area, maybe personally that you want to develop, but what do you want to become personally, right? That's different than what you are now. How do you personally want to be better? And this is at the root of a lot of things. I did a series for some seniors a couple of years ago now, and I asked them my very first day with them. It was a full room, and I asked them. I said, by a show of hands, how many of you would like to see change in the world? And I believe every hand in the room was raised. And then I said, okay, go ahead and put your hands down and get a real clear picture in your mind of what change you would like to see in the world, the one you most want to see, what change you would like to see in the world. I said, you got it? I said, okay. I said, okay, now, by a show of hands, how many of you were thinking about yourself? No hands went up. We all want change in the world, but it's sometimes hard to go, okay, wait a minute, I'm really the only person that I can definitely change. I can't definitely change my spouse, my kids, if you've got them, other people, my coworkers, my country. I can't necessarily, I only have limited power, and I have influence is what I have, but the influence comes from when I start developing myself and go, okay, how can I get better? How can I get better? So that's what I want you to do. Think of those areas that you want to develop personally, that you can do on your own without anybody else. And then ask, how will you develop these daily? What will you do? Can you block off a half hour to go walking? Can you, what will you read? Who will you be around? What resources will you bring in that help you improve on these areas? Where can you take some time to think into it and to think about how you can get better? Okay. How will you develop these daily? That's the first one, personal development. Now, the second one, and this is for those of you who are married or have a significant other in some kind of relationship. I'm calling this together development. There's personal development, that's just me. And now there's together development, which is with another person. And we need quality time for this. Now for some of us, in the different love languages, quality time is my number one love language. That's how I receive love, is by somebody caring enough to take some time with me and to talk to me about something that means something to me. That's easy for me. Quality time is easier for me. I love getting together with people and talking about real things. I do not like chit chat. I was just doing a personality test recently, and that was one of the top things that came up, is that does not like chit chat or non-meaningful conversation. I really don't. But we can make quality time, whether or not that's your primary love language. We can set aside time on a regular basis to ask some meaningful questions to our significant other. And the beautiful thing about this is that when we do ask the questions and we listen with the goal of understanding where they are, how they feel, what's going on in their life. And I think that it can be easy to miss that, even if you live with somebody on a regular basis, you're married to them. I think sometimes we can miss that, where they really are and how they really feel. And one of the questions that I would suggest starting with, and I heard this on a podcast with Bob Goff recently, and he's an author and a speaker, and he has a book called Love Does. And but he was being interviewed on this podcast, and he said one of the questions that he and his wife ask each other is, how am I working for you? In other words, how is me being me like I currently am? How's that working for you? How's that working for you? Right? Am I encouraging you? Is it something that lifts you up? Am I being a blessing to you? Or is me being me a drag to be around? Is it demotivating? Is it discouraging? Is it frustrating? How am I working for you? And I thought, wow, what a brilliant question. And thank you, Bob. If you ever hear this podcast, thank you for that question. I thought, wow, that's one of the most simple questions I've ever heard that can reveal so much that we might really need to hear. And for both people to ask, they go, how am I working for you? How am I working for you? I think that's brilliant. Another one, and I love this, and this is a really fun one, and that's, what have you loved the most recently? And I love, my wife and I will often ask this one if we've had an experience or gone away somewhere, or just, what did you love the most in the last week? Or what did you love the most on that little excursion that we took, or that experience that we had, or that time with some friends? What did you love? What have you loved the most recently? That's a fun one. Another fun one is, what's been your biggest win? I love asking this, just to people in general, not just my wife. And I love sometimes I'll use this as an icebreaker in a group and say, okay, what's been your biggest win? That's great. This is great. Even, like as a networking question. Instead of being like, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? Say, hey, what's been your biggest win lately? And because that's going to be something that people are excited about. When they start telling you about what they're excited about, what they consider their biggest wins, that also gives you insight into what the person's like, into what they care about, into what matters to them. And then that's a basis on which you can more deeply connect. Another deep, little bit deeper question is, what's your greatest current challenge? What's the biggest challenge? What are you struggling the most with? What's on your mind? What's taking your energy and you're thinking about it? It keeps coming back to mind. What's your biggest challenge right now? And then that can very easily lead into the question, what do you most need help with? How can I help you? What's the biggest thing you need help with? And sometimes, on a domestic basis, it can be as easy as helping clean the house or washing up some dishes. On a team, and it's a good thing to ask your team, what do you most need help with? Because, often there'll be something that people are really struggling with, but they're afraid to say it. They're afraid to ask. They don't want to look bad. But when we realize, I was with a team the other week and we really got sidetracked on an issue about doing our laundry. And almost everybody there, I'd say 95% of the people said, oh yeah, I've got folded laundry sitting on my dresser, hadn't been put away or still in the dryer or whatever. Because there's so many things that we have to be responsible for that we can't overlook, that sometimes those other things, they do get overlooked and they can get frustrating. They can get frustrating for us, and we can feel bad about them. They can really lower our sense, because we can think easily, everybody else has this together, boy, I'm the only one struggling. And that's not the truth. When we asked that question, this topic of laundry came up, and this is a group of good, solid professionals. They are brilliant at what they do, and they are diligent. But when it came up, and everybody in the room almost went around and they were like, oh yeah, yep, I can relate to that. I struggle with that. Everybody, it's like they just breathed a big sigh of relief, thinking, oh my goodness, it's not just me. Oh wow, I thought I was so bad and everybody else was so together. Oh, we're all in the same boat. What do you most need help with? And it's really a relief, because there's things that we all need help with that we don't necessarily like to say we need help with. But if we ask each other that, hey, is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything you need help with? And if there's something I can do to help you, to have a culture, whether it's at home or whether it's at work, to have a culture like that, where people are helping people and don't just expect everybody to have it all together, to know that there's definitely times when we're going to need some help and to pitch in. That's a huge positive and a very motivating thing to have in a culture.
Jeff will be back shortly to wrap up today's message. This is Gabriela, still on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. If you've missed any part of today's message, you can hear it again online, as well as the entire archive of Empowered Living at www.talknetworkradio.com or search keyword #EmpoweredLiving. We would like to acknowledge our music partners, Sound Ideas for Corporate to the Max and Kevin MacLeod for Airport Lounge. Any scriptures read during this broadcast are from the New American Standard Version of the Holy Bible. If you would like to learn more about Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, visit www.jeffbyrdcoaching.com. That is JEFFBYRD coaching.com. Do a Facebook search for @CoachingRocks or drop Jeff a line at jeff@jeffbyrdcoaching.com. Again, JEFFBYRD coaching.com.